Talking financial organization in a professional practice does not have to be boring. Are you ready for a few money in, money out ideas? It's Susan Gunn coming directly to your head to make you think. Can you handle the truth? Because she is known for being energetic, laughs a lot, and gives honest, sometimes direct, but always practical advice. It's time now for Money In, Money Out.
Welcome back to another exciting episode of Money In, Money Out. Super dull, God, I can't even talk. Well, and it wasn't because I got together and partied too much yesterday, but the Super Bowl is done. The Australian Open began yesterday. That's important for me and Kate Williford and a few of us. Kicking off tennis for the new season. And it's now 7 days, 10 hours, and 11 minutes. Kevin would appreciate this until spring training for baseball. What a wonderful time to be alive. That's the way I feel. It's honest. Seriously, I only know a handful of listeners are agreeing with me, but it's okay. If we have learned anything this last year is that we may all have different opinions and we could still love each other. And sports will be one of those because there will be lots of fans that are not happy with yesterday's results. Anyways, we had originally planned to talk about insurance today, but somebody decided she had to go and become a grandmother again. So she's not joining us at the table. And so Dana Moss, congratulations. There's your shout out. She will be joining us again at some point in time. And she was going to join my friend, cohort, sidekick, friend, colleague, Teresa Duncan.
Dear friend, future Golden Girl pal.
Yeah, probably needs therapy, but she is my friend.
Hello, Susan.
Teresa's with Odyssey Management and hosts 2 podcast shows that you should listen to. Nobody Told Me That and Chew on This with Kevin Henry. And we are frequent flyers on each other's podcasts. That would imply brooms?
Yes, for you, for sure.
Oh, wait. No. Now.
All part of the Dental Podcast Network, too. And we give a shout out to those guys because they're awesome.
So instead of all things insurance, which is what we were going to talk about today, which was my least favorite topic, and that's why I invited you guys to talk about it. I was just going to sit back and listen, and now I've got to participate because it's just me and you. But instead of talking about insurance, Teresa and I decided we would talk about all things ethical. Temptations in practices. Mm-hmm. And we kind of joked about something, and I'm going to let Teresa lead off the introduction to a dental practice that we quickly created.
All right, Shady Dental. Shady Dental. So let me put my broom away, Susan, because I'm frequently on my broom as well. So Shady Dental is a creation of Susan Gunn and myself. So it's a Gunn Duncan creation. How about that? Duncan Gunn or Gunn Duncan creation. So I was thinking, what if we created the least ethical office that we could ever conceive of? And some of the suggestions that we were throwing around was, how about this is a place where nobody ever has to pay a co-payment or co-insurance. This is somewhere where you can get whatever you want done. And, if you make it, you do. If you don't, that's fine. No reason to take any CE like medical emergencies or anything like that. OSHA and HIPAA are just suggestions for this type of practice, right? Sure. And you have people who may or may not do something with your credit card when you go to pay your bill. So I'm just thinking Shady Dental has a lot going on, and I would love to talk about Shady Dental.
Shady Dental sounds like my kind of place. Oh, wait, it's a fraud investigator, but hey.
Right. So Shady Dental, I think would be, first of all, it would be managed by somebody who is looking to take extra vacations. Okay, so there's that. And then you have a doctor who wants to take maybe the least CE possible and still keep their license and doesn't want to do very many exams, just wants to see people, day in, day out. You have an insurance coordinator that may or may not be writing off differences, and you have a hygienist who spots perio disease in everyone, including your 7-year-old cousin.
Wow. So which one of those should we tackle first?
Oh,
Let's
since you
tackle
put
the one at the top.
let's go.
Let's go for the dentist of Shady Dental.
Okay.
This dentist, I'm going to tell you, and in fact, I'll just throw out some of the ones that I've had that could have been the owner of Shady Dental. I've had dentists, and I'll say I was sad for them, I guess is a way to say that were drug addicted dentists,
That is sad. Mm-hmm.
drug addicted, and would cancel patients' appointments for the afternoon because they just didn't want to practice dentistry. They needed to go home and get a fix.
So that's interesting you brought that up. If you, and this will come out around that time, I just recorded a podcast with Edie Gibson. Do you know her? She's a hygienist.
Yeah.
She's fantastic, but she also has a long history of dealing with people that have substance abuse. And I had her come on because I was hearing from my friends that they're starting to see it amongst their colleagues or even feeling it
Yeah.
amongst themselves, this feeling of despair. And they're wondering, if it crosses the line, what's my responsibility? So she came on and talked about spotting it and dealing with it. So if this is something that hits home and you're like, this isn't really that funny, you may want to listen to that podcast and see if that can help you a little bit. But Susan, I know about this because one of my dear friends, I actually lost him um, to addiction that went out of control. He didn't die from an overdose, but it was really his body just kind of gave up. And he was young, and
Yeah.
so that was really hard. And we can talk about that a little bit more if you want. But I know from personal experience that we had a receptionist who was absolutely addicted,
Oh, yeah.
and we did not realize that when she was going out in her car to have her alone time at lunch, it was because she was getting another hit of her cocaine. She was taking another
Oh,
bump.
wow.
And yeah, that went on for a little bit. And then, we found out later after she left, oh, that explains the erratic behavior. And, a patient had said, yeah, I saw her in the parking lot and she looked like she was doing something. And of course, he tells us this at his next recare appointment. So,
Of course.
thanks a lot. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of dentists who they do need help, like you said, but it does creep in and affects. And our jobs as healthcare professionals, whether you're the manager or not, it's always do no harm. So we need to ensure. And how does that happen?
How would you handle that, Teresa? I mean, how
So
the heck do you handle that if you're an office manager or if you're I can't even imagine. It's odd enough to be in that position as a certified fraud examiner.
mhm.
But I can't imagine being in that position if I was actually one of the team members.
So my friend that passed away, he was in a different state, and so I didn't have to see the day by day, but I know the person very well who had to see the day by day. And I think there's a point where he just had not hit rock bottom, and every time she intervened or tried to have a talk with him, and she's very, very, she's not confrontational. She's the kind of person that you want to be the one to address you if you're having an issue. She's kind, empathetic, and he just had not hit rock bottom, so none of those talks had any say. Now, Edie had brought up a situation where they had an intervention with one doctor where the team, he thought he was at morning huddle, and it ended up being an intervention, and they were all concerned that he wasn't practicing the way that it went, and they were concerned there was going to be board action and all that kind of stuff. But I want to throw one more I guess the word is an obstacle in. And this I heard from an office a long time ago, and it was the receptionist I was talking to. And at her previous office, she had definitely seen embezzlement from the main doctor, like he was taking stuff from the corporation, funneling it in to his part. But she brought up something that was very interesting. She said, I can't afford to lose this job. It's a medium town. I can't afford to lose this job. Who am I supposed to call? Because if I do that, I have no job. So
Right.
there's all of that. So I think first thing I learned when I heard that a long time ago is I can't judge people who stay in that situation because I don't know what their situation
Right.
is. Yeah, so that was kind of an interesting lesson to learn when I thought everything was, either it was absolute. I'm sure you're dealing that with ethics all the time. It's not necessarily black or white, like you should do this and you should do that. Yeah, that was hard to hear.
Yeah, so that's one area that could be, and that's an extreme. But
Hmm.
what about in Shady Dental, the dentist that um, doesn't exactly deposit all of the patient payments into the bank, but sidelines the cash into their own pockets
Hmm.
instead of putting it into the bank.
So you could, if you felt like you were capable of it, have a conversation where you see something's going on. But I don't know if I would do that, Susan. I'll be honest with you, because obviously this person is um, hell bent on being crooked. And me as an office manager, I mean, who am I calling to complain about that? Because he's stealing from the corporation.
The only thing that I,
And the Board
yeah,
of Ethics.
the only thing that I would say about that is she needs to CYA big time
Yes.
and have the deposit report for that day printed and have the doctor initial the deposit report that he took the cash so that she is not the one that is blamed for it down the
Hmm.
road.
And that's a good point, because what if the doctor did just say it's her word against, mine? And so, yeah, no, you're right. So as far as financial goes, who is he really hurting? The other part of that is, what if he's sending in fraudulent insurance claims?
Oh yeah.
So there is the whistleblower aspect. You can always call anonymously to these insurance companies and give them a tip. But again, that makes your life harder, because they're now going to come in and audit, and they will, and then you may or may not have your job again. So I think you have to really take a good look in the mirror and ask yourself, you know, what what are the consequences of this, and am I bothered that much? And I think most of us would be bothered that much. I think we would have a hard time sleeping with
Hmm.
that.
Yeah.
Waking, that would be in my conscience. So it's tough. Being a whistleblower is not easy, right, Susan? You've done a lot of case studies on that.
Yeah. It's not easy. And if they're truly anonymous, which they don't always end up staying anonymous, truly anonymous, then that's one thing. But I don't think they ever really stay anonymous. It's a matter of court documents at that point, and so it's pretty easily seen. But um, that would be a hard one.
Hmm.
And the other thing is, most of mine have been office managers that are filing the fraudulent claims. And so,
Yeah.
if you're calling in a whistleblower against the doctor, then that's another CYA for the office manager to say, you need to make sure that it doesn't come back on you, that
Hmm.
you were the ones that filed the fraudulent claims, because the doctor doesn't actually press send on the e-claim.
Right.
So
Absolutely. So financially, I guess we have sort of a resolution that we have to weigh what's right and what is, uh, I guess, what our tolerance level is. But if you look at clinically what the doctor's doing wrong, what Dr. Shady is doing clinically, maybe they're using, and this, I had this in an office, they were using gray market products. And they were,
yeah,
that was, and he just wanted to get cheap products. And I've never worked with a doctor who's done this, but there's definitely been cases of doctors reusing disposable equipment. And then you have doctors who just do a terrible job. They're sloppy. They don't do a good job. They, extract when they really don't need to extract, but that's what they want to do. And, that's a problem with Medicaid as well. So you have lots of, I think, clinical shady doctors. And that to me is more clear cut, because you have a conversation with the board. You can make a complaint on that. You could even insurance companies would want to know too, because if they're not actually doing the procedures and they bill for it, or if it's a bad procedure, the insurance companies also would want to know that they're not getting a quality product. Um, but yeah, what else is at their disposal if they want to complain about Dr. Shady
we don't have a whistleblower line in
for
dentistry.
clinical?
Yeah.
Hmm.
The state boards, but then you're making again a complaint against the state boards. And so, I mean, that is their alternative.
So I guess, do you decide if your tolerance level allows you to continue to work there?
Right.
And so now you have a doctor that has revolving doors, and you always ask yourself when you interview or work with a doctor like that, is the door revolving because of the
Right.
doctor, of the manager? Why is this door revolving?
Right.
And yeah, so you don't
Why
find out
can't
until
you
it's too
keep
late.
your team members?
Yeah, like what's going on there?
Yeah.
Yeah, and my old boss, he's such a sweet guy. If we ever let somebody go, it was maybe once a year, right? Like it was never a common thing.
Oh, yeah.
And he would freak out. Patients are going to want to know. Patients are going to wonder what's wrong with her and it's going to look
Oh,
bad. And I'm like, dude, you have no idea. There's offices out there where it's like every month there's a new person coming in. Don't, you're worried
well,
about
it
one
happens all
person.
the time in an embezzlement. They always want to know what happened to the office manager. Well, what do I say? What do I say? You just the least amount as possible.
Right.
They've
Right.
taken the jobs elsewhere.
Yeah, that's all you need to say.
They
Because
moved on.
I mean, they'll figure it out when that's all you say,
Yeah.
that there was something off. I mean, that's fine. It's
Yeah.
fine.
No
But
kidding.
most patients tell you what's wrong with that person though when they're
Oh,
not
yeah.
there anymore.
When
You
they're
know,
not there.
right?
I
Yeah.
noticed that when I called in one time and said that I had made a $20 cash payment, that all of a sudden it showed up on my next statement. And you just kind of go, really? What? Really?
I called to make a payment on my bill and she told me it was all fine. Don't worry about it. I was like,
Yeah.
what? Yeah, you hear all sorts of things. Or I
Oh,
didn't like how she talked to the doctor. I didn't like how she talked to me. You hear all sorts of stuff once you let somebody go.
well, and so you and I both know. So always clearing the throat for somebody that does podcasting means, I'm going to
Something
be very
important.
careful about how I say this. You and I both know that precedence is always set at the top. It's one of the things I say the most in my ethics presentations. Leadership in the practice really matters. If the doctor doesn't lead, someone else will step into that role to lead. And they may or may not like who chooses to step up into that role. I
Mhm.
mean, sometimes it's not even the office manager.
Oh,
Sometimes,
no.
yeah, sometimes it's a hygienist,
It's a seniority issue, really. It's
Yes.
usually seniority. I've been here the longest, and I owe so much. This office owes me so much.
I know.
I've paid my dues. You hear all kinds of conversations like that. But yeah, dentists who are playing not so ethically, clinically, really bother me. I would encourage you, if you're working for an office like that, that person needs to be res- that person either needs to be reported or you need to do something anonymous, because to me in that situation there is a do no harm clinically, and you see the faces of these patients going back and forth, and I can't physically approve of that. And then I would get the heck out because I just could not work in that situation. I
Yeah.
mean, you
I
start
couldn't.
liking the patients and then you realize they're going to get some bad care. You can't do that.
No, it's a that would be such a tough, I couldn't do it. It would be such a tough situation. Well, before I started my business almost 25 years ago, I worked for corporations and there were
Hmm.
so many corporations. In fact, one of the first ones out of college that I worked for was back, okay, this so totally dates me. It was, when you used to go to the restaurant and they had the wait staff would write on a little order slip pad what your order was, and you would give it to the gal at the checkout when you checked out, and you could tear off that bottom part and you keep it for your files. Well, all the salespeople would tear off that bottom part, and they would have thousands of those in their desk drawer, and they would just fill out the dates and they'd make up the amount. It was never really the amount. They'd always add $10 or $15 to it.
It's the
And
same thing with taxis. Remember back in the
oh,
days before Uber and Lyft, they would just give you a blank sheet of paper and you could put whatever you wanted on
yes,
there. And I've had
exactly.
taxi drivers just hand me a stack of them, like, here you go. It's
Oh
like,
my gosh.
I mean, it's like carte blanche to get your reimbursement. But I am ethical, Susan, and I did not pump those
Oh,
numbers.
me
I
either.
want you to know.
I used to look at those guys. So this kind of says, I used to look at them and go, what the heck? I could never do that. And they're like, oh, well, you should do that. But they would file it with their expense reports and then their taxes.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
it's like, so double the thing. And it's, anyways, that always bothered me. And with every major corporation, that's one of their battles is the
What
expense report.
And I think too, I think some of them give up. I mean, both Norman and my father have worked for companies where they give you a per diem.
Yeah.
Government, that's the way they do it too, a per diem. And they do that so they don't have to worry about the headache. And my dad, he can eat pretty cheaply, but he's getting that per diem, and I
Yeah.
don't think he's alone. That's pretty much most of the government. So there's a confusing message that's sent that, okay, we know you're going to pad it, so just here's your money.
Well, and the thing with per diem is if it's $50 a day or $40 a day and you only spend $10 this day, but you're going out to dinner with your colleagues the next day, now you've got more money to spend the next day.
Right.
At least it somehow evens out. I kind of try to think about that when we're speaking somewhere. What's the per diem for that area, and see if you could truly. It's one of those mind games that you play with yourself when you work alone. But hey, it
I
works.
I don't remember how that is. It's been so long since no, I just had that live event in January, but yeah, it's been so long since I've had to fill out an
Oh,
expense report or bill a client for anything, because travel expenses, I don't have any. My poor United account is just so lonely. My poor
my
account.
American account's really lonely. I'm so ready to travel, but that's a whole different story. We're off to Shady Dental. It's been a year. It's been a year, Teresa.
Sucks. I
I
know.
know. Since we were,
Wait, so
yeah,
I'm gonna bring it back to our Dr. Shady, just
yes,
because I had a brain, like, how sometimes you have a
of course.
thought and then you don't want to squirrel. So so we talked about the doctor who's being deliberately shady. So what about not deliberate shady doctor? So, and I mentioned this earlier in our pregame. I have a friend who worked for a doctor who was getting old, and he was starting to lose his memory,
Yeah.
and it was starting to affect his and his hands were shaking. He was just old. He would actually block off between 12 and 2 in the afternoon, and that was his nap. He had a couch in his office. I mean, and quite frankly, I don't mind taking a nap, so that sounds good to me at any age. But
What time is
when you're yeah, it's time. No, but she said they wouldn't schedule anything during his nap, and they would wake him up a half hour so he could get up, brush his teeth, get ready, stretch, whatever. And that was a problem, because after a while you could see he was not good in the afternoon, so he started scheduling everything in the morning because he's better and fresher in the morning. But she started to notice the quality of the work really slipping, and so she had to have a real heart to heart and just say, I know you've done beautiful dentistry, and I'm just not seeing that anymore. And can we do something about it? Can you talk to your doctor? And it wasn't met very nicely. He was angry, because who wants to be told that, right? He was
right?
angry. They
Yeah.
got, they continued to work together. There was probably a couple weeks where they didn't talk. They just did assistant stuff. She was his assistant, and, just instrument here, instrument there, and, good night, good morning, all that kind of stuff. And then she brought it up again because she felt like she had to. And he just said, I think it might be time. And, I guess whatever she had said to him the first time had weighed on him, and he'd been thinking about it. And let's be honest, this guy he should have retired. He wanted to retire. There was no reason he couldn't retire. But what if you're in an office where your doctor isn't clinically up to par? Then again, there is the do no harm. And it's not because they're shady. It's just maybe because they're just, you ain't. Think about this, Susan. At some point, you and I are going to have voices that crack, voices that don't project. I
I'm
mean,
gonna talk like this. I'll be the oldest podcast ever.
somebody's going to have to say, "Hey, you sound like doo doo. You need to stop."
I'll say
Yeah,
that to you. Don't worry.
I know you will. That's the beauty of a friend.
Um,
So,
I actually have had that happen a couple of times. One recent, with a daughter that called me that was concerned about her dad and was concerned that he was being embezzled from,
oh wow,
and trying to figure out what to do and whether to do financial analysis because she really wanted him to sell the practice. And so that's happened. But more such a heartache was a client, a dental practice that I had trained in QuickBooks, 20 something years ago. And he was in his early 80s, and everyone in the practice stole from him
Oh my goodness.
at some different level. And he was just so kind-hearted and oblivious and not paying attention. And the kids had to step up to the plate. And so that's twice that the kids had to be the ones to step up the plate and say, it's time to sell the practice.
That's so hard. I can't imagine I can't imagine finding out that somebody was trying to rip off my dad. Like, I think I would go totally nuclear
Yeah,
on that.
well,
So
this one did.
I
This
don't
one
blame
did.
him. I don't
Yeah, I
blame
don't
or
either.
him or her. I would be so offended if
So
somebody
defended
tried to rip off my
down.
dad. It's I don't worry about that with my mom because nobody rips off my mom. There's just no way. They need to watch out for her, but I do need to worry about my dad.
Well, and we're both daddy's girls, so
Yeah, for sure.
boy, I would have been so pissed. And that's how I talked with his daughter, because I got it. Being a daddy's girl, so was she. And she was just all hair on the back of her head, ready to go to war. And
Don't blame her.
so,
So, what about the doctor who is stealing from his associates, not giving the new associates their cut?
oh, that's happened a lot. And sad, isn't it sad that I think it's the norm?
I think it's pretty regular. I mean, definitely there are good doctors. Don't get us wrong. Lots of good doctors. But there is something with associates, and I don't know that I have more doctors who were associates somewhere else and now they have their own practice. I hear all the horror stories from them
Yeah.
about how bad it was at the other office, and oh, and they wouldn't reimburse me for this, and they were constantly deducting this out of my paycheck and this and this and this, and it's like, holy cow, that's why your contract has to be ironclad so you know exactly what you're
Yes.
getting paid for and what's going to be deducted.
Well, and
But
you need reports.
mhm.
Most of the time when I've heard about it, they're not getting any timely reports. And if they're getting reports, I would also be danger Will Robinson if the office manager is real tight with the primary doctor, that the office manager doesn't change um, procedures, that a treatment that has been done back to the primary doctor when it was really done by the associate if they're paid on production.
Mhm.
I've had that happen. More recently, had a call about a partner that was a new partner, and the original doctor was ripping off the new partner. Um, and you just go, good Lord, you guys.
I know. But they need to run their you say this and I say this. You need to learn how to run your own reports. So if you're an associate doctor, if somebody says to you, you don't need to run reports, I'll run them for you. Just say thank you. I appreciate that. That's really kind of you. I'm the kind of person who needs to know how to run those reports. So do you mind teaching me? And if you get resistance on that, that's a huge red flag for you. Go to the website and learn how to do it on your
Yeah.
own. You don't even need to tell them that you're learning how to do it.
You get resistance, you call me and get an ask the expert. I'll show you how to maneuver around and to pull the reports that you need to pull.
Absolutely. I mean, your stuff you teach needs to be, taught to first year associates, first year dental office owners. I mean, in dental school, it doesn't help because dental
Now,
school,
now,
they're
now,
not paying attention to anything. No.
no,
They're
no,
just because they're
no,
so
no.
busy.
No,
They're
so
busy.
this Thursday I'm doing my presentation, my annual presentation. I've done it for Texas A&M Dental School in Dallas every year for like 15 years, I think. And so I talk to them about embezzlement, and they tell me every year that yours is the only class that they don't leave.
Because it's scary and sometimes we
Yeah.
need to scare them. No, I think what I meant is it's just they're so busy taking their tests, because I've got two colleges too. I mean, I not as long as you've been doing it, but they're just so overwhelmed.
Yeah.
But my stuff is insurance, so nobody really loves it anyway. So
I will tell you that funny aside, that I went into a dental practice one time and a dentist came from the back and she goes, "It's the famous Susan Gunn." And I'm like, "What?" And she goes, "You spoke in my dental class at Texas A&M." And I said, "I did." And she goes, "Yes." And so when I interviewed with this dentist, I asked them all the questions you told me to ask.
fantastic.
And she was like, "Where'd you learn that from?" She goes, "Well, this gal came and talked to our class."
That's excellent. See, you made a difference. Good for
Oh,
you,
well, there
Susan.
you go. And I love talking to the students. I mean, to be able to make a difference
Mhm.
in what they're going to do down the road is just, it's so important, especially with just giving a heads up and this is what you need to ask.
Right. And that's really what they need, a heads up. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody needs a heads up for this kind of stuff. That's why we're talking about Shady Dental and all the crazy stuff that you could run into at Shady Dental. Not Shady Pines Dental, but Shady Dental. And
Shady dental.
if you're older like Susan and I, you'll get that reference.
I should have looked up to make sure somebody doesn't have a Shady Dental so that so if you own
Um,
Shady Dental, we want to disclaim this to say that we're not talking about your specific dental practice.
Shady Characters Dental. Maybe we should change the name of the of the office. But so then there's another. Oh, let's go through the other staff members too. I've
Oh
got
yeah.
one for you. How about the hygienist who was using her position to sell oral care products chairside, and nobody else knew about it until a patient asked about it?
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah, because she was getting kickbacks. I mean, a lot of these programs, like, you get kickbacks, but I mean, first of all, you have to, it's okay. Is it okay with the owner of the practice to do that? It's the owner of the practice. You can't run your own little side job from your chair. And is it ethical for you to push one type of toothbrush over the toothbrush that the dentist actually recommends and believes in? So there's that. So yes, this is something that has been pretty common for the last couple of years when these types of programs really I guess kind of sprung up everywhere. So you've not run into that?
Oh no, I have had a dentist that a hygienist that operated a drug ring with the front office manager, with the front office manager's husband, with the front office manager's adult son, and the other person at the front desk.
I got to tell you, the spirit of American entrepreneurism just kind of lives on, doesn't it?
That one was an interesting case. That one was
What happened?
I was called because the dentist thought it was an embezzlement and it was only $1,800 and I turned around and looked at him because I actually had to go on site because of some other things. And I turned around and looked at him and I said, "You have a much bigger issue going on." And drugs. I got to tell you, drugs is a big deal. Like, it's such a big deal. I just had a case a couple of years ago where the front office manager, I kept telling the dentist, I think he's on drugs. I think he's on drugs. I kept said it. You need to go and look online through your prescription monitoring, your state prescription monitoring program, and make sure that all the prescriptions are patients of record. And he
Hmm.
said, "Oh yeah, I'll do it. Oh yeah, I'll do it. Oh yeah." And finally, one day he called and he goes, "Yeah, you're right." And
Wow.
so ends up, that I was right. But on this one, this was before prescription monitoring programs were in place. We actually had to create a letter and fax it to the different pharmacies, local pharmacies, requesting the information on the doctor's DEA number.
Wow.
So,
Wow. Did
it
the
was,
cops get involved?
oh yeah, and that was kind of a fun one. So, um, I have you know, they can't see me, but I'm reaching for it to show you. I got a battle coin
Oh, look at that.
from the sheriff's department for teaching them about white collar crime and and all. It was kind of cool. It's kind of a cool thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, isn't that nice?
Yeah, why aren't you talking to more police departments, Susan?
I don't know. Well, there's a lot of people out there that know that, but I mean that know more than I do.
They're not the famous Susan Gunn.
Whatever. Anyway.
So what happened with that? Did they all get busted?
Oh,
What
yeah,
happened? All of them?
that was,
Good.
I'll tell you, that was one of the embezzlement, one of the very few embezzlement cases where I actually was very concerned about the safety of my well-being.
Oh, wow. That's
Because,
crazy.
yeah, it was a pretty hefty, pretty engaged drug ring. So,
Wow. So, okay. So we've got side businesses in the office that are maybe illegal or
I've
not.
also had them collecting money in the back.
For what? For dentistry or
Yeah,
for,
for the plan for the treatment
and
for
then
the
not
hygiene
not
visit.
adding it in?
Not giving it to the front.
Wow.
Yeah,
That is ambitious because I would think that'd be spotted pretty quickly.
you would think, wouldn't you?
Well, any insurance coordinator I would have trained or has taken my class knows that the end of the day needs to be reported on, reports need to be run, and we're collecting from the patient either before they go back or as soon as they round that corner to check out. So
Well,
that's
yeah,
wild.
but that was one of the things we talked about. Sometimes they walk right past that front desk.
Oh no, they don't. I've got rumble strips in front of my office. They can't leave. I'm just kidding.
Right.
I worked with one girl. She took my place, and shout out to Jean because I love her so much. But she would get up and walk around and go into the hallway and catch them before they got on the elevator and be like, "Oh, you needed to stop. Can you come back? You needed to stop and see me." I mean, she would chase people down.
Oh my goodness.
Oh no, look, we need to get paid. You know what you're
Oh
doing
yeah,
when you
yeah,
scoot
no
out the
kidding.
office. You know what you're doing. So she was good at it. I would be just like, come on, really? But she got up and went. So shout out to
Wow,
Jean. I don't know if she's still doing that. I hope she is.
that's
But
awesome. That's awesome.
so, all right. So we've got that. I've also run into an office that the assistant was running a little teaching school out of the office on the weekends. She was training people.
Oh,
It was an unofficial teaching school. She was training people in her community, and she was, of course, they were using materials. They were using the office in general. The doctor always
wow.
went away on the weekends. And so she was running her own little school, and something broke. One of the equipment broke, and her excuse that she gave was very flimsy. And so the doctor kind of was like, "What's going on here?" and watched it for a little while, and then he was like, "Okay, I stayed. I drove by. A lot of people in my office. I don't know. There's a
Wow.
lot of liability involved." Yeah, he didn't go in. He just sat and watched it, and then he had to have a talk with her. And I don't know if anything else came out. That was kind of one of those things that you meet on the floor of a cocktail party or something, and he tells you the story. So I don't know whatever happened to that, but he said he
Yeah,
had shut it down and had to
I want to
let her
know why
go.
he didn't go in. I think that's very curious. Could you sit in the car and watch something like that happen?
Well, I don't know. You
I'd
know what
be
I was thinking?
curious.
Well, how many people are in there? Who's in there? Who's walking in and out of there? I don't know. I didn't ask. So maybe he just wanted to get the evidence and then get rid of her. Maybe he didn't want a confrontation. I don't know.
Wait, a dentist didn't want confrontation?
So there we are. We have the answer. We do love our dentists, though. I can tell you what, there's a couple dentists I know that would not have sat in the car for sure and been rushing in there. So, but then what do? You're like kicking everybody out. What if she's in the middle of treatment? And what if she's sedated? And then you got to, all this liability is involved. Like, holy cow. So, yeah, but it was one of those things where you just can't get the whole story because people are coming around and there's other stuff going on. But yeah.
I did have an office manager that did bright white uh, uh, kits on patients on the weekend.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. She was getting paid for it.
Yeah.
See, entrepreneurs, I'm telling
Yeah.
you.
Thinking ahead.
So, all right. So, what else happens in Shady Dental? So, we have to talk about, of course, forgiving co-payments and letting people walk
Oh,
out.
yeah.
So that's, of course, very illegal. But it's a great marketing tool, and that's why it's popular. So, in that situation, Susan, we gotta report that to the insurance companies. We gotta let them know that's going on.
Yeah. I just had a case where a consultant told the office manager that was embezzling, by the way, but told the office manager that there was a ton of outstanding accounts receivable and that she needed to send statements out and to contact the patients about the outstanding accounts receivable. So instead of doing that, the office manager just wrote everything off. $23,000 later.
Wow. Wow. Well, but she stayed around? Because,
Oh, no.
I mean, we definitely know some, no, but I mean, like before even, like just leave, like just get out of
No,
town.
that's kind of surprising to me. Why didn't she just leave?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, she's done, right? So like, why stay there? So, and we have seen, I mean, definitely we've seen people not show up and you're like, why do they not show up? And then you find something later, instruments are missing or a
Oh,
sensor's
yeah.
missing or something like that. So there's all sorts of stuff. So at Shady Dental, there's a lot of equipment turnover. There's a lot of supplies turnover. So that's another
Right.
aspect of being an employee at Shady Dental is you just will never have what you need because it's already walked out the door by the time it came in. UPS brings it in, and your colleagues are taking it out the back door. So that's another aspect of Shady Dental.
Okay, so Teresa, seriously, you have to tell us about the hoverboard text messages that was you and Kevin did in your podcast, Chew on This.
So, yeah. Oh, it was actually we did this cover story on Chew on This, but then Nobody
Oh,
Told
there
Me
you
that we
go.
did the dramatic reading.
I listened to
But I
them
love that.
both. So,
I was going to say, I love that you listened to them both. Thank you very much. So we did a dramatic reading of the text between Dr. Seth Lockhart and his manager, Shauna,
Shauna, I
I
think.
think. Shauna, yeah. So we did a dramatic reading, and it was just stunning how they planned to defraud the Medicaid system. And he was willing to do sedation on everybody because it was more money. They de-incentivized fillings and still let you bill for sedation. So he's basically saying, okay, we're going to do sedation on everybody. And they started paying for partials. They didn't take away payment for partials. So even young kids, they wanted to give partials to young
Oh,
kids.
yeah.
So it is really insane how it was. And I'm not, I don't think there's any libel or anything involved because, or slander, I'm sorry, slander involved because this is all court records
Yeah.
and they've been convicted. Both have been convicted. But he was known as the hoverboard dentist because he was actually doing extractions on a hoverboard. There's lots of video going on around about him. So I just thought he was the hoverboard dentist, kind of a weirdo doing that. Then when you dug into the case, it's not even the hoverboard's not even the issue. It's the fact that he is he defrauded a lot of people, and the office manager, first of all, was helping him to plan it, and second of all, she was the one who was giving treatment plan presentations to the patients and basically talking them into having treatment just because it was going to cost more. They had an agent go in under a special warrant that they are designed to be able to solicit that information. And he went in and she did the same thing. She told him, you should do sedation, and he wasn't sure, and she talked him into it. And sedation it was very expensive and very lucrative for them. Unbelievable case. So I know you laughed and had a good
Wow.
time with it. We had a good time with it, but the underlying message is that people are shady. People are
Yeah.
shady.
Well, I just, as my dad would have said, hell bent on doing wrong. When
Hmm.
so much of the
Yep.
time you could be hell bent on doing right. I mean, truly, that's the choice that we make in ethics,
Hmm.
to be shady or not to be shady, right?
That is the question, right?
But it
That's what you need to put on your slides. Do I be shady or not? Shady or
well,
not? So yeah, and I wondered, and this did not come out in any of the documents, but I wondered if they were like in cahoots because they were obviously very close and constantly in contact. And was this strictly a money making scheme, or were they in it together romantically? Like I wanted to get to the bottom of that, but that's just
well, it kind
I
of
don't know if my
sounded
my brain needs to
yeah, it
know.
kinda sounded like it a little bit because,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, they were tight in crime if they weren't tight otherwise, and I
Hmm.
so in a small portion of my embezzlement cases, they've been having an affair with, the dentist, the team member, and it happens, and that is a shady area because
Well,
when
it
they start fooling around with other team members, when the dentist does, it's they're not fooling anybody else, for one thing. Everybody sees it, so they're not hiding it. they'll
Right.
all know because they pick up on that subtle body language that happens in the practice. And
Right.
the real losers in that are not only the dentist, but the families that are involved on both sides. And quite frankly, it opens a door for embezzlements.
And
Yeah.
harassment
Yeah.
charges. So I just want to be clear though that the romantic side of me, which is a very tiny piece, is going to come out and say, but people fall in love. So you and I know many people who have worked together and fallen in love. And I'm thinking of one couple in particular. They worked together, fell in love. There's a lot of that goes on. That's not what we're
No,
talking
that's
about.
not what we're talking
We're
about.
talking about, both are married, and we know, Susan, that there's times where the dentist doesn't press charges because he
Right.
was either sleeping with this person and he doesn't want it to come out, or he was involved in some drug thing and he doesn't want it to come out. So I'm always worried about those doctors. So a shady dental doctor would not press
Oh,
charges
right.
if he were found out. And so let's go ahead and take that a step further, that another characteristic of shady dental is that everybody's sleeping around.
I like all the British shows that I watch on TV. That's what I wondered about the BritBox shows. It seems like everybody goes to the pub and everybody just sleeps around. So
That's shady dental.
apparently, no. I'm always. I had a case, an embezzlement case, where the consultant required the dentist to call me and to hire me to do the embezzlement, or she was going to quit consulting with the dentist. I mean, it was an
Wow.
ultimatum. And the dentist really valued her input. And so he called to hire me. But oh my gosh, he was late getting me the information. He was not willing to help me answer questions. I mean, there were things that I can't gather from paper. And so I have questions and was not very forthcoming. Finally, after weeks of struggling with this, he admitted to me that yes, the gal had stolen from him, and she had admitted to him that she had stolen from him before he hired me, but he had not told the consultant that, and that he was not having an affair. I mean, he was so quick to say that.
So he said that I'm not having an affair.
But I'm not having an affair
So
with her. And I said,
so he's having an
guess
affair.
what? And he said, what? I don't believe you. And I said, and here's why. And I started pointing out some points of conversation that we had had. And to which I started laughing. I said, you do remember my degrees in psychology, right? So, let me just say why I believe that you're not telling me the truth. So ends up, he said he was not having a physical affair with her, but he was very emotionally involved with her.
I get that. I'm very emotionally involved with Chris Hemsworth. I get that.
Well, I'm very emotionally involved with your husband, but that's a whole different story.
You and Norman do have you guys have the love affair of all love affairs, but I thought you were dedicated to your boy, Charlie Hunnam.
Oh, yeah, I still am dedicated to Charlie.
So does that count that we're having emotional affairs? Does that really
Well,
count?
Charlie doesn't know me from squat, but I did get to see him when I was in Nice, France. So I'm going to count that.
So, okay, so you have all this love going on in the office, but what about the doctor that hits on patients?
Oh, yeah, that's happened.
Oh yeah, for sure. So that's a tiny bit unethical, just a smudge. So yeah, so that's another part of Shady Dental, and Shady Dental is absolutely going to employ hygienists who left another office but took the patient list.
Oh yeah,
because that's definitely going to happen.
Yeah, definitely. Let's look at all the patients she can bring to the practice.
Yes, she may even show up with her own instruments that have somebody else's name on them. So there's that.
Okay, so then let's finish up with the office manager at Shady Dental.
She's amazing. I have no doubt.
She is amazing. She makes things happen that look really good on the books, right?
Yeah, she probably even she's amazing enough that she probably opened up another account at the same bank, don't you think? I mean, if you're a very smart office manager, that's what you're going to do. And maybe put some checks in there that weren't really meant for you. And yeah, I think I'm also going to be really good at writing off amounts, like just
Yeah.
letting people walk out.
I've got lots of friends and family that go there, and she tells them not to worry about it. Just to go ahead and go home, that she'll take care of the balance, that it's
She,
not a problem.
and that this person is probably she's so good at her job, she's going to pay every invoice that she gets, even if it's from a fake company owned by her husband or her cousin. So there's that.
Yeah.
So very generous.
Yeah.
I think generous is a good trademark or a trait of this particular person.
Helpful. And you know what? The willingness to assume new duties is amazing.
Right. Because she wants to control everything.
Like helping the doctor with the QuickBooks.
I know that you love that when a doctor gets an offer like that.
Yeah. When she's doing everything, it's so helpful for the dentist.
And we're saying she just because we're used to saying she. Don't think we're sexist. Men are just as shady.
They are just as shady. It's just that there are more women as office managers. That is the only reason. I've had 2 office managers that were guys that I've done embezzlement cases on.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah.
Actually, that's more than I thought you would have.
3. I've done 3.
I would have thought just 1 as an anomaly. But still, that's a pretty low number.
That's 3. Well, considering the odds of actually having a male office manager.
That's true. Well, the numbers are going up. I mean, working with ADOM as much as I see a lot more male office managers that go through the ranks in the program. So maybe it's a very slow shift, though. It's going to be a very slow shift. But
I see more male office managers in veterinary.
Oh, yeah?
Isn't that interesting?
That is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That is interesting.
They call them practice managers.
Well, I remember calling myself a practice manager once, and a patient said to me, "When are you going to be done practicing?" And that was just really the worst dad joke, but it stuck with me. So I became the office manager. Yeah.
Huh. Well,
the administrator. But really, there's nothing wrong with being a practice manager or practice administrator. That patient was just a jerk. Yeah. So the manager that is going to manage Shady Dental isn't going to really worry about renewing licenses and stuff because she can just photocopy one. The doctor's CE is probably going to be forged. I would think she's going to fill that out, not worry about actually having CE codes. And when she takes the money to the bank, it just, osmosis is how it's going to get there.
Wait, it does go to the bank?
Maybe. Maybe it goes to her bank.
Right.
So petty cash is the way to go there.
Well, and credit card charges. You can charge on the practice credit card and just say it really was a practice expense, especially Amazon. So that could happen.
Well, Starbucks every day. That the queen of embezzlement up there in Northwest Washington, Lori, is it Doughty?
Doty.
Lori Doty. She was like hundreds of thousands in Starbucks charges she had. Yeah. Crazy.
Amazing, isn't it?
How much caffeine do you need to run a practice, for crying out loud?
Well, that's what I say. I talk about Lori in my presentations and say I really hope that she was buying Starbucks for everybody. I mean, seriously.
Yeah, how rude is that?
Huge amount. And her travel expenses were just amazing.
Well, she, what was her license plate was the one that just cracked me up.
Envy us.
That's right. Envy us.
Envy us. Yeah, so the other thing that office manager does at Shady Dental is that she will, don't worry about the time clock. I'll just clock you in, and I can adjust your time, and I know that you were here, so I'll take care of that.
Right. But she's also going to have a lot of overtime as well.
Yeah, she will have a ton of overtime.
Yeah, because she works very, very hard. Leaves late, comes in early. She's, always there.
Well, and she also will kind of be the best friend to the dentist. And she's the go-between between the rest of the staff and the dentist. It makes everyone completely dependent on her. That's why I said in the very beginning that it's so important that the leader of the practice being the dentist, that sets the precedence, because someone will fill that role and it may not be a really good thing.
Right.
So
Wow. So Shady Dental sounds like a field trip for you and me. We need to find Shady Dental and have a live podcast episode from this office.
Yeah, no kidding.
All those people are probably listening to it going, wait, I think I work at Shady Dental.
So what if they do?
Then they
What
need
do
to
you tell
call
them?
you.
Well, but I'm hired by the dentist. They don't have any legal ramifications to call me. If the dentist has some leadership issues, then I can talk through with them. That's what the expert would do.
That's true.
Make sure they've got some systems and procedures set
So
up.
perhaps they would call me and I would tell them what I would do or what you could do. But to be honest, the first thing you're going to do is go home and ask yourself, how long can I put up with this before it starts to eat away at me? Because it will eat
Right.
away at you. There's
Right.
a lot there. I hope you don't work at Shady Dental, people who are listening, because that's a lot. Holy cow.
Well, even if you're the dentist at Shady Dental, I don't know how much, one of the things that I used to talk about in the ethics course is how we sear our conscience so that the next time we have a difficult decision to make down the road,
Mm-hmm.
then we have less of a conscience, so to speak, to help us make that right decision. And so, if you choose to do the wrong thing over and over and over and over and over again, then eventually that wrong thing is going to seem the norm
Mm-hmm.
and the right thing is going to seem the abnormal. And so it would be tough at that point to even recognize, I would imagine, if you were the dentist, that, I have an unethical practice. But I
Life
don't
is
know.
full of hard decisions.
It is tough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't envy you. On a serious note, I don't envy you if you have run into this
Right.
situation, and we're making fun of it only because we want to make a point. But Susan and I are both well aware of how much this can weigh on a person.
Yeah. And it's never too late to do the right thing. It's never too late.
That's right.
And so just it's time to choose it now. And I wouldn't wait any longer, because I will tell you, after this last year that we've gone through, I've seen more SBA, EIDL, PPP funding fraud. Just go to FBI.gov. The headlines for the press releases are mind blowing. And
When
it hasn't even been a year that this funding has been available.
it's really sad though, because I would have thought there'd be more obstacles. But when you give something out there for free with little guidelines, little guardrails, then it's going to go off the rails. And that's just what's happened. It's really sad. And maybe you should leave a link in the show notes as to what you're talking about, maybe an example of that, because people who are not actually filing for those loans or anything, they may not be aware of what that is. So that's because it's, unless you're the manager or the practice owner, you probably haven't had to deal with that. Thank God. Honestly, you should be happy you didn't have to deal with it.
Yeah. Well, the controls for the second PPP was a little bit tighter, so that was good. The first PPP was so random.
Yeah, I could have filed for my dogs. Let's be honest. So it was sad,
Well,
very sad.
that was one of the cases that I looked into, is that a guy created a company and said he had 25 employees, which none of them had ever been paid for, and he just made up people, fictitious names. So then with the money that he actually was funded, with the money he got, he bought a Lamborghini.
Wow.
So yeah, I'd like that, but I'm not going to do that.
Wow.
That was my podcast episode, Lies Breed Lies. You didn't listen to my...
I did not. I'm behind on my podcast. I'm so sorry. I know I'm a bad friend. I know. I'm going to download them now, though. I'm going to go download them so at least you get counted for downloads. How's that?
There we go. Okay, I'm finished talking to her. Anyways, I just, all that kind of what Teresa said. This is a very serious topic, and you don't want to be known as Shady Dental, because if your team members know that and your patients see that, then you're losing their trust. And if we can't trust our doctors and our dentists now, we've got to have them in our corner. And so you want to be known as the non-shady dental, the bright and sunny dental.
That's right. The ethical dental.
Bright and sunny dental.
Oh,
Anyways, Teresa, as always, thank you so much. It's always fun for us to get together.
I love being on this show. Thank you so much for asking and having me on. And yeah, we'll see each other again at some point, and we'll do big hugs.
Oh, I cannot wait. I'm gonna like totally. I think that's coming up in September, right?
Let's see.
That'll be the next one. So, anyways, thank you. We will put lots of information in the show notes for you to look at. Thanks for listening. I wanted to tell you about some upcoming episodes that include Teresa Narantic, another really good friend you'll enjoy talking with, on rare words and actions that start with PH.
Oh.
Like philanthropy.
Oh. I was thinking phosphate, but I don't know why. So go ahead.
Because it starts with PH, I guess.
I guess so.
And then in 4 weeks, Catherine Itel Belt joins me back again at the table to talk about courageous conversations. I am really looking forward to this. She specifically really, really wanted to talk about this, mastering the important conversations you've been avoiding. She was recently on your podcast, wasn't she?
She was. Get great information. Yeah, no, she's always so cool, calm, and collected. So it was fun. We had a good time.
And so, do you have anything really cool and upcoming that you can tell them to stay tuned for?
Well, my friend Edie, like I said, she's going to talk about how to handle this addiction, and also just not feeling great, not being in a good place. So that was a very good podcast. I'm working on one now. It's an insurance potpourri where I just take a whole bunch of questions that I get, because I get questions every day. I'm just going to read a bunch of questions and answers and pretend I'm doing a Q&A in front of a class. And yeah, hopefully it's going to be a hodgepodge, insurance hodgepodge episode. So look out for that one.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you again, my friend. And you guys out there in the cyber world, take care, stay safe. We will see each other again, as Teresa said, sometime soon. There is a light at the end of that tunnel, and I see it. It's not the train that's going to run us over anymore. It's the end. All right. Take care and stay safe.
That's a wrap for this podcast of Money In, Money Out. Thanks for listening. Be sure to write down the most valuable tip you learned today so you don't forget it. And remember, you can find out more about all the valuable books and services Susan has to offer at www.susangunnsolutions.com.